Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So I am filming this video super late. I've just been so busy. I feel like everything is just kind of running into each other at the same time, and so I'm still trying to balance, things that I have coming up. I'm still working on foster care as far as getting open and getting a few things done. I finished all my classes, but then I found out that I needed to get another fire inspection. And so I have to schedule. I couldn't get those things immediately. I couldn't schedule those immediately. So I plan to get that stuff done this week. And then I have a release for my BodyByEndo collection. I actually have one of the hoodies on right now. This is the It's Chronic tee. It has BodyByEndo, and then it has a little kind of moon right here. I'll have to insert a clip or insert a picture of what the back of the hoodie looks like, because I just tried to turn around and do it and I can't do it. It looks so weird. So I'm gonna pop a picture up so you can see what the back of the hoodie looks like. It releases on March 10th. Right now it's scheduled to drop at 9 a.m. That is the latest that it will drop on March 10th. I have some stuff that I already have planned, but March 10th was such an important date to me because that was the date of the surgery that changed my life. So I really needed to drop it on March 10th, which is a Friday. So I'm gonna have to wake up extra early to get everything. But for this collection, it's called Out of This World collection, and it's going to be dropped through my BodyByEndo, which you can find on Etsy. Also follow me on Instagram if you want to see up to date. I don't know if I'll have another video posted before the drop date. I tend to post right now, it's shaking out to about every 2 weeks. That's just the best I can do right now with all the things I have going on with, work, and then trying to design and release my first collection. First official collection. Other than that, after my full shameless plug of my brand, we're going to be talking about a foster care. And I'm not really sure what I'm going to title this video, but essentially I wanted to talk about the things I didn't really expect, or the emotions that I didn't really expect to go through, as hard or as much before I started foster care. There are things that they talk about in training that will essentially come up, but it's, for me, and I'm sure for a lot of people, it's easier to hear something that might happen versus experiencing something that may happen. So I just want to talk about that. I only have really really good ones that I could really come up with. Essentially, I've only had 2 placements, so hopefully I can update this video or do another video like this in the future. But I've had two placements. They were both very short-term placements. So I'm really going off of just very limited experiences. So I just want to talk about those because I think it's good if you're going through the training process and you have it in your mind that you're going to handle situation one way. When you get to that situation, it could be completely different. So the first thing that I want to go over that they talked about in training is the trauma that these kids really go through. And you hear about some of the horrific situation that these kids go through that cause them to come into care. But I do want to preface this and say that these kids come into care for reasons that are on the spectrum. You have things that are super horrible and dark, but then on this side, you have, parents, mom, dad, or both, that are just really going through a super hard time in life. We've all been there. and they just don't have the family support, or they just don't have a support system to help them. And then CPS, DCFS just somehow gets involved out of concern from, a teacher or whoever comes in contact with the child, and they get removed. And, but there are situations where, they come into care, the parents are really diligent about doing their classes and their parenting plan and getting their kids back. So there is a spectrum. So I don't want to make it seem like it's all horrible. Every reason that a kid comes into care is horrible. Sometimes people just have down turns in their life and they just need a little bit of help. And CPS and DCFS at times is just that help that they can get at the time. So first, I want to talk about this side of the spectrum, the more kind of horrific, shocking part. So in training, like I said, they talk about how dark some of these stories will be. And hearing that in training, you're like, oh yeah, okay. You have a more rational take on it, or at least I did. Like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. They have a horrible thing that's going on at home. They get taken out of that situation and brought to a foster family, and that's totally understandable. And it wasn't until my first placement that really just kind of smacked me in the face. I don't want to reveal genders or age of any of the placements that I have. So I'm just going to use general terms, just for privacy. I know that some agencies or some DCFS departments allow you to film kids as long as their faces are blurred out, and take pictures as long as their faces are blurred out. As for my situation, I'm not allowed to do that. They're not able to be on camera at all, face blurred out or not. They're just not allowed to. So with that, I just want to protect that privacy and keep me from getting in trouble by just not even going with gender and age and stuff like that. I will say that my general age range is younger, so that's all I'm gonna say. But specifically with my first placement, the description as to why they came into care was something that I genuinely was like, what the heck? How do people come up with this stuff? How do you wake up? I'll never understand how you wake up and you just do things like that or treat children like that. It's not the child's fault that they're brought into the world. It's not the child's fault that they're in that the child is in a certain situation. So for people to just be so just either mean or sick and disgusting is just a real eye-opener for me, especially because you may see that on the news, or you may watch YouTube and see stories about parents who do bad things to either their children or other children that come in contact with them. And then you hear it, and then you kind of move on to the next video, or you move on to the next thing in your own life. And to me and for me, it was a lot different having that child that you just heard this horrific thing about actually come to your house. And then within a couple hours, that child that you just heard these things about is standing in front of you. To me, that was an eye-opener. Whoa, this is real. It's here. I admit how certain situations would affect me emotionally. I feel like I was a little bit naive in that. I try to be more rational minded, and I try to rationalize things and be like, oh, it's not going to be that bad. And try to rationalize all the things as to how it's not going to be that bad. But that's very hard to do for me as far as foster care. But yeah, so the emotion that really came up to me was anger. I was like, oh my God, who the heck would do this? I instantly became very protective of the child. We bonded very, very fast. Like the child that I had, I think about them every day. Like I miss them so much, and I just it creates a little bit of anxiety because when they leave, when they go back to either their family or where they go back to their parent or whether they go back to family, you don't sometimes you're lucky enough to get to have be able to continue to have like updates as far as pictures and stuff, but I feel like maybe the majority of the time you don't, and that was the case in this situation. Like I don't have any contact, I don't get any updates or any pictures. So just hearing about how they came into care and then sending them back to family, it's just very, I worry a lot. Um Not that I'm like trying to stereotype the family, but just knowing that what situation they were in before, and then they leaving, and then them leaving knowing what type of environment that I provided, is just very, very nerve-wracking for me. But I'm hoping that they're doing great. I'm hoping that they are in a good situation. I feel like when you're kind of removed from a situation, it really doesn't affect you, or when you hear about it versus like when you're actually in it, especially when you hear some of these stories as to how these kids came into placement, it can bring up a lot of emotions. You hear about like scary people or people who are just sick-minded, but like when it's right up in your face, it's like, whoa, there's some people in this world who are really disgusting and scary. So yeah, that to me created a little bit of worry. Actually, a lot of worry. A lot of worry, actually. But yeah, I just try to, that when those situations happen, I feel like I try to even like compensate even more as far as like making sure that they feel safe, making sure that I'm like trying to tend to them. I want to make sure that they don't feel scared, that they feel safe, and that they feel like they feel loved. Because in my mind, it's like if they leave here and they never feel love, or they never feel attention or affection again, I know that in my head that they had it for at least a little bit while they were with me. So that's kind of how I kind of like think about it. The next one that I wanted to talk about was, they say in training that you can't do foster care without heartbreak. And that is so true, because you never know how long you're going to have a placement. And they always talk about you're going to get so attached to these kids that you have in your care. Thinking that I'm going to go into it with a game plan. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to keep it in the very front of my mind that they could leave at any time. Don't get too attached. Don't get too emotionally attached. You know, just try to treat every day like it's the last. Like every phone call is going to be that call that they're going home. So like I try to like really be like on guard. But with both of my placements, that lasted probably not even the first day. Like that went out of the window so fast. I couldn't even tell you. It's hard not to fall in love with these kids that come into your house. It's very, very hard. And it's very hard, at least for me, not to see them as my own for the time that they're in my care. And so to see them leave is like, oh my God, it's like just, it's so hard. Especially like my first placement, whenever DCFS came to pick them up, like I gave them to the DCFS worker and they just burst out into tears. And that was like the hardest thing, like for me. Like I literally came back in my house and like bawled my eyes out. It was like, it was so sad. And I'm just like, I go into it with this, I like, now that I like look back at myself or like how I was when I went through training, I'm like, you don't know anything. And remember guys, I've only had 2 placements, but I can already look back at myself and like in training, and like you don't even know even the half of what you're getting into, especially like emotionally, because it's very hard. It's like I don't have any children, so like I see these foster kids as my children, and it's like they're being like ripped away from me. But it's like that's what essentially you kind of sign up for, is that the expectation is for them to go back home, and it's very hard. It's very hard. So when you're in training, it's going to be very, very easy to try to rationalize and try to think that you're going to go in to the situation with the game plan. But I'm here to tell you now, that game plan, once that kid looks into your eyes with those big doe eyes, all of that is going to be gone. Especially my first placement, they had me wrapped around their finger with like a bow. And I'm talking like one of those bows that you get on a brand new car. Like, it was wrapped that pretty. Like, I was just putty, especially for my first placement. And the reason I speak about my first placement like that is because my first placement was a little bit older than my second placement. So we were able to kind of engage a little bit more. My second placement was younger, so we weren't able to really like bond the way that my older first placement was. But my second placement, I didn't have for very long. We did bond. They were so cute. Both my patients were so cute, and I'm like, oh my God. But yeah, my second placement, the reason they came into care is kind of like more over here in the spectrum. When I talked about like hard time, like it just seemed like mom specifically was just having a hard time. I feel a lot of sympathy for the mom, a lot of empathy for the mom. With my second placement specifically, I think about the mom a lot, and I just hope that she's doing well, especially like mentally. I know mental health can be a very slippery slope, and I know it can be a very deep hole. Like, depression is like literally being in a 20-foot hole with a 5-foot ladder. Like, what the hell can you do with that? Mental health can be a scary thing. It can be a slippery slope. So those are the two things that I really wanted to say that were unexpected for me personally. If you've gone through the same thing, I want to hear about it in the comments down below. What was your game plan, and how did that game plan completely fall apart? From here on out, I'm just going to not have a game plan. I know in my mind, and I know that, you know, you truly can't go through foster care without heartbreak. And I've accepted that. So I know that the next placement that I have, I can do even better. So yeah, so thank you guys for watching. Don't forget that BodyByEndo's new release is on March 10th at 9 a.m. So I'll have the link to my Etsy store in the description down below, so that on March 10th you can go and get your hoodies. We have 3 hoodies and 2 shirts. There was a winter storm last week, so I know it's still cold enough in some places for hoodies. If it's not cold enough in where you are, you can get a shirt. So we have 3 hoodies, 2 shirts. Check them out March 10th. Bye guys.